Hey guys, good morning. Thanks so much for coming to our story party. My name is Craig. I know you guys don't know me, but I'm excited to be able to share the story of Nehemiah with you guys today. Before we get into that, I do have one small surprise. Check this out first, and then we'll get into Nehemiah.
God's people had lived in Babylon for 70 years. Then King Cyrus, the king of Persia, took over Babylon and let them go home. Some of God's people went to Judah, but some of them stayed. Nehemiah stayed and worked for the king of Persia. One day, some men came from Judah. Nehemiah asked, "How are God's people doing in Jerusalem?" The men had bad news. The people are in trouble. The walls around Jerusalem are broken down and the gates have been burned down. Nehemiah cried. Then he prayed and fasted. The king noticed Nehemiah and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you sad?" Nehemiah was afraid. No one was supposed to be sad around the king. Nehemiah said, "The city where my ancestors are from is in ruins, and the gates of the city have been burned down." The king sent Nehemiah to Jerusalem. Nehemiah inspected the walls and led the people to start rebuilding the walls and gates. The workers put in doors, bolts, and bars. They cut stones and lifted them into place on the wall, and they filled in gaps and holes. All around the city, people worked side by side. Soon, the wall was half as tall as it had once been. Not everyone was happy that Jerusalem's walls were being rebuilt. Some men who lived nearby were angry. God's people kept working on the walls, but their enemies made a plan to attack them and stop their work. God's people prayed and chose men to guard the walls all day and all night. But the people were discouraged. Our enemies are everywhere, they said. Nehemiah reminded the people that God was with them. Don't be afraid. God is great and powerful, Nehemiah said. Be ready. If our enemies attack us, God will fight for us. Enemies could threaten God's people, but they could not make God's people stop building. Their enemies were not in charge of rebuilding the wall. God was. So God's people went back to work. Some stood guard with weapons, and others worked on the wall. Some men worked with one hand and held a weapon in the other. They were always ready to fight, just in case. Nehemiah was a wise and good leader for God's people while they worked. In just 52 days, the wall was complete. The gates were repaired and the wall was restored. When all of Jerusalem's enemies heard that the wall had been rebuilt, they were afraid because they knew God was with his people. Nehemiah led the people to rebuild the walls around Jerusalem to protect them from their enemies. Jesus came to protect us from our greatest enemy, sin and death. He died on the cross and rose from the dead to rescue everyone who trusts in him.
Wow, isn't it amazing how we have a God who can restore things that are broken? We just saw how Nehemiah prayed to God when the wall around Jerusalem was broken, and God heard Nehemiah's prayers, and he allowed him to go and help the people. God was able to use Nehemiah to restore that wall. Sometimes in our life, things get broken, and it may be a friendship that we have, or we may hurt someone's feelings. Or for example, this morning, you may notice this mug. I woke up and I wanted some coffee. So I went to the coffee cabinet and I grabbed my mom's favorite coffee cup. And unfortunately, I broke it. Now, I think I did a pretty good job of trying to tape it up and fix it, but I tried to drink some coffee out of it and it just wasn't possible. Sometimes in life, things need to be restored and we can't do it by ourselves. Luckily, we have a God who can restore things better than this. He will do a job much better than my tape on this mug, and he can restore things that are brand new. And they won't look like this. Instead, they will look like this. Perfect. I'm happy, and my mom will be happy. On a serious note, though, when things are broken in your life and do need to be restored, you're able to pray to God and talk to God. He hears your prayers just like he heard the prayers of Nehemiah. When something in your life needs to be fixed and you don't feel like you can fix it and it feels overwhelming and it's just too much, God is there. He hears you and he wants you to pray to him. He will not only listen to your prayers, but he will also help you restore anything that's broken, like my coffee cup here.
Can you feel it in your heart, deep down in your soul? Let the love of God move you, change you, raise your eyes to see the one who gave us all so much. Forever God, forever love. Praise the living God. He is here and he is real. Worship him together, worship him forever. Look at what He's done. He gave it all for us. Can you feel it in your heart? Deep down in your soul, let the love of God move you, change you, raise your eyes to see the one who gave us all so much. Forever God, forever love. You will live forever, loving us forever. You will live forever. God, you are great. You will live forever, loving us forever. You will live forever. God, you are great. You will live forever, loving us forever. You will live forever. God, you are great. You will live forever, loving us forever. You will live forever. God, you are great. Can you feel it in your heart? Deep down in your soul, let the love of God move you, change you, raise your eyes to see the one who gave us all so much. Forever God, forever love. Can you feel it in your heart? Deep down in your soul, let the love of God move you, change you, raise your eyes to see the one who gave us all so much. Forever God, forever
Thank you guys so much for joining us today at SC Kids. Thank you for letting me be a part of your guys' morning. Coming up, there's going to be a question that those of you at home can talk about and discuss with your parents. And those of you that are here with us will get to answer in your small groups right after this. I hope you guys all have a great day, and thanks again for letting me come and hang out with you guys.